All right, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. It's Brian Hines back as always with Alex Barth. Another hot one here in Massachusetts today, and another off-season show to power through for you guys. But we have a little news actually to discuss because we had a signing. I believe it was Monday night, Monday or
yesterday,
Tuesday night,
right?
earlier this week. The Patriots had an open roster spot after Wes Schweitzer retired earlier there in minicamp, but the Patriots brought back a former offensive lineman, Yasir Durant, if that sounds familiar, because they traded for him once before in 2021. They gave up a late pick to get him at the end of training camp there from the Kansas City Chiefs. Came over, appeared in 8 games. He made one start, mostly right tackle, but since then, he kind of bounced around a few more NFL teams, but spent the last 2 years in the UFL and with the DC Defenders. Started at guard, but then bumped out to left tackle midway through the 2023 season. And since then, he's played some really good left tackle for the DC Defenders there. He was the first team UFL this past season en route to winning a championship with the Defenders. A lot of people who kind of talk about the league have called him one of the best offensive linemen in total in the league. So he's had some success there in the UFL. Big jump, obviously, coming back to the NFL, but you had an open roster spot. Why not add some more depth and, still kind of a younger-ish guy. So, Yasir Durant comes in here with some versatility on that offensive line and bring him in and see what you got with him for training camp now.
I actually think it's a sneaky good signing for them. I'm not ruling out him making the roster. We kind of talked about this when we did our roster projection last week, that they don't really have a true backup left tackle. Like Vidarian Lowe is probably a backup caliber player, but he can only play on the left side. Usually you want your backup tackle to be a swing guy. Demontre Jacobs, I know he's played on the left, but is really only a right tackle for practical purposes. You have 2 rookies who are potentially swing tackles in Marcus Bryant and Jack Connolly, but those guys are relative unknowns. Here's a guy that just played left tackle at a high level in a professional league, has also played right tackle in the NFL, has played some guard as well. So maybe a guy that can compete at that left guard spot, but I think at the very least can come in, back up Will Campbell, back up Morgan Moses, and back up, could be a 4-position backup, could be a true utility guy, 6-man on the offensive line. So he's positioned as well as anybody to win a backup job on that offensive line. Does he compete at left guard for starter? Maybe, but he should be right in the mix when we're figuring out who this offensive line room ultimately is.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't rule him out making a push with that versatility, right? It's something we talked a lot about with a guy like Jack Connolly, who was a UDFA, but you see him out there in OTAs and in minicamp. He's playing 4 spots. He's playing both tackles. He's playing both guards. Even you saw Caden Wallace late in camp there playing, both tackles and then getting a shot at left guard. Like that versatility, especially with the reserve offensive lineman, is huge for those guys to make a push. So as he said, he's got experience at both tackle spots and NFL experience too, not just UFL experience, and a little bit of time at guard. Like there's spots there to be won, and you put him kind of right in the mix there, maybe with Jack Connolly and Caden Wallace as one of those guys who has a chance to win top reserve. And then maybe he does make a push for the starting left guard spot, because that is wide open still. Seems like Cole Strange is the front runner, but still wide open. So I like the signing. Someone did ask us a few weeks ago, if there's any UFL guys to keep an eye on, and he slipped under our radar. So shout out to whoever asked for the UFL. We were looking more at maybe a third quarterback or a new third quarterback or something along those lines, but find some value there maybe in Yasir Durant to add to the offensive line. So any other additions you think they could look at and any positions in particular? I know they're maxed out roster wise here, but you can always shuffle the back end of that roster. I don't know who else is out there in the UFL world at this point, but any other position?
I mean, this was easy because with Schweitzer retiring, they had the roster spot. A veteran left guard. Maybe Durant is the replacement for Schweitzer. If he's not, maybe it's another left guard. I still wouldn't rule out them adding another quarterback. A true nose tackle type. I mean, they have some, good athletic defensive line that 330-pound plus guy to help play the run alongside Kyrus Tonga. That would be my short list off the top of my head. If we're talking about free agents, obviously if they can get a better caliber player in a trade, which we'll get to in a second, you do that. I'm not saying they should be done adding, but just in terms of off the street, that's where I think you'd be looking to add some depth.
Yep. But you mentioned the trades, so let's talk about them because there are, this time of the year, there are the contract holdouts and, some guys who could be still looking to be on the move. I know we've talked about a couple of these guys through our last couple of Q&As. We get a lot of questions about, the Terry McLaurins, the Trey Hendricksons of the world, but we're going to kind of run through all of these guys. And we actually, Bleacher Report put out an article about 3 or 4 days ago, and they had a list of 10 of these guys in an honorable mention, which actually Antonio Gibson was among their honorable mentions, maybe as a trade candidate, in that backfield if Lan Larison and Travion Henderson really established themselves in their rookie year. But we have a list of 10. Some of them, like Kirk Cousins is leading this thing off. Definitely not on the Patriots radar there, you would imagine, Kirk Cousins. But we're going to kind of go through this list, see if anyone stands out in particular. But I guess jump off right off the bat, like honorable mentions, Antonio Gibson. Could you see him reasonably becoming a trade candidate throughout training camp at some point there?
Gibson, no, teams rarely trade for running backs this time of year. I think they're going to keep 4. If somebody blows them away, sure. I don't think that they're like dead set on keeping them. When's the last time like a running back got traded this time of year? When's the last time a running back got traded?
That's a good question.
I can actually look that up.
I feel like they all just leave in free agency now.
Right. It's not because the position being devalued. I'm not saying it's right, but there's probably going to be one that's going to come up that's like very recently. We're going to be like, oh, duh. Here, all transaction types.
I was trying to think of like, because Jonathan Taylor had the contract dispute, but he got paid. Saquon was free agency. McCaffrey. That's
going back a while, and that was
in
season.
A couple years now, and that was in season. You're right, but that's probably the biggest back who's got moved. I don't know if there's been one since then.
There was one this offseason. Jordan Mason was traded to the Vikings for a 6th-round pick. So going back to April 2020, going back to January 2023, right? So that's basically the span of 3 off seasons, right? 23, 24, 25. What? One guy got moved. We should have gotten this. One guy got moved during training camp. Who is it, Brian? You know this.
Who's
the one running back in the last 3 years that's gotten traded during training camp? You figure that out. I'm going to go back further.
Oh, man.
Come on. I'm mad I didn't get this.
I'm going to be mad now. Did they have a dispute? Did they have a dispute with someone in camp? It's a Patriot, right?
Was. Oh, okay. So going back to January 2021, so post-pandemic, only 2 running backs have been traded in the lead up to the start of the season. Cam Akers just traded on September 20th, so that's a little different. Only 2 running backs were traded in July, August, or like September before roster cuts. Can you name the 2? Somebody in the chat beat them to it. You guys know this. Come on. You guys know both of them. Brian, you know both of them.
Someone said Dion Lewis in the chat, but he was free agency.
He was free agent.
Blunt didn't get traded.
Blunt didn't get traded.
21 and 23, you said were the years?
Those were the 2 years. Yep. August 25th, 2021 and August 27th, 2023.
Mike Gillislee?
Nope. Come on. One of them's a much bigger name. One is a smaller name, but like he wasn't at the time.
Oh, someone got one in the Pierre Strong.
This guy got one. Pierre Strong is one. Yep.
Damian Harris was free agency though.
Yeah. The other one was he was like a big name. It was kind of a big deal. People were surprised he got traded. They had too many running backs. They were going to trade one. I actually think, if I remember correctly, they traded him because like Damian Harris was ready to break out.
Everyone's saying Damian Harris, but it was
not Damian Harris. No, this guy was traded because they felt good about Damian Harris.
We're past the Ridley years.
He's now retired.
What the hell? Why can't I think of this?
They traded him for the picks they used to draft Jake Andrews and Chasen Hines.
Oh, Sony
Michel. There you go.
Michel.
So only 2 running backs have been traded during training camp in the last 5 years. Both were traded away by the Patriots, away by Bill Belichick. They were both Belichick years. Sony Michel to the Rams for 4th and 6th rounder in 2021, and Pierre Strong to the Browns in 2023 for Tyrone Wheatley.
Wow. What a couple deals those were.
And then the only other, Cam Akers was traded September 20th. That was, I think, a contract thing, right?
I believe so. Or he's just always hurt too. He probably got hurt something, and they were just done with him.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you had guys like Jordan Mason got traded in March. Joe Mixon got traded last March. DeAndre Swift, end of April. But, like, in terms of this time of year, that's a good point. We're due every other year.
We are. Every 2 years.
We're due for a trade for a Patriot. But they've been trading. Oh, yeah. They've been trading away the running backs. Yes, that would track.
So Gibson could track, because there are a couple on this list, like Travis Etienne in Jacksonville, Najee Harris in LA, which I know they drafted Hampton, but they also just signed Najee Harris. So I don't know what's going on in LA there, but don't really see the Patriots going out and acquiring a back after they just drafted Travion Henderson. But, maybe we are due. And Antonio Gibson, yeah, as Vic says, I guess Gibson is next there. So maybe we'll see. But past running backs elsewhere on this list, wide receivers here. I mean, the big one is Terry McLaurin, still 29 years old, wants to get paid, wants a new contract. I would still be shocked if this happens, although Bleacher Report does have wide receiver needy teams such as New England Patriots and the Steelers as two who should be watching this very closely. But I would still be shocked if Terry McLaurin is on the move, just with the success that Washington had and how good Jaden Daniels looked, who's still just his second year on his rookie contract. You're not going to have to pay him for a couple more years. Like, this makes all the sense in the world for one of those like 3-year extensions. I don't know what the AAV would be, 20 something, but it makes a lot of sense for them to just pay Terry McLaurin and run this back. They have Debo in there now. You don't want this version of Debo Samuel being your number one wide receiver. So I'd be shocked if Terry McLaurin ends up being on the move, but if it really gets sour and he is, I would definitely be interested in this one if I was the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing they should be all in on, because Terry McLaurin would be a great addition for a young second-year quarterback trying to take the next step. But that's the thing. He's a great player for a young second-year quarterback trying to take the next step. It would be organizational malpractice by Washington to let him get out the door. So I can't possibly imagine the Commanders let him go. With Patriots should be in on it if they do. I'd give up a second-round pick. I'd tender a package around a second-round pick for that trade.
Yep. Kind of, I think we said in one of the Q&As like that Brandon Ayuk trade, which was a second, a fourth, and Kendrick Bourne. I mean, maybe they want Kayshon Boutte or Jalen Polk.
Yeah.
Or we have a lot of those depth receivers now, so you could throw some picks in one of those. They could have their pick there, but definitely would be interested. But yeah, it would be tough. It would be a tough decision by Washington to do that. But another receiver, this one in Green Bay, who also has a lot of wide receivers after they just drafted Matthew Golden in the first round and Savion Williams. I believe they did that on day 2 or early day 3, but they have a crowded wide receiver depth chart as well there. So Romeo Doubs could be on the way out, 25 years old. He was suspended earlier in last season for conduct detrimental to the team. So it's a bit of a rocky relationship right now, but he could eventually be available as he's entering the last year of his rookie contract. So he wasn't drafted by Elliott Wolf in Green Bay, but I'm sure there's still some ties there. Would you be interested in Romeo Doubs, or do you think that's just another one of these kind of like number 2 or number 3 options?
Yeah.
Have a lot of right now.
Yeah, he's kind of what he is at this point. Doesn't he feel a little redundant to Kayshon Boutte?
A little
like
bit,
you have
yeah.
Kayshon Boutte, you have Mac Hollins. They're going to play Kyle Williams at the X. Could you call it a change of scenery thing? And maybe you trade him for Kayshon Boutte and both guys just get a fresh start. If the Patriots are done with Kayshon Boutte, I don't know why they would be, but if they are, like, that could be the move. But Romeo Doubs doesn't really elevate that room a ton. He's going to take snaps, if not from Kayshon Boutte, from Kyle Williams. And I want Kyle Williams playing. Like, they need to develop Kyle Williams, work with him, get him going. So I'm out on this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think, again, it's kind of redundant to what you have. So I don't know what they would be looking for. Maybe just
if they ask for a 7th-round pick, fine.
Yeah, like you can take the flyer there, but I'd imagine they're looking for like a 3rd, 4th-round pick, unless teams know the relationship is just that bad that they want to get him out of there. But definitely a much less caliber player than we're talking with Terry McLaurin. So I would be fine if they sit out the Romeo Dobbs sweepstakes there. But we'll end with another pair of pass catchers. We'll go to tight ends. They have Kyle Pitts, who is in I believe this is his 5th-year option. So last year of his deal, then he'll need a new contract. Obviously hasn't lived up to the bill of the number 4 overall pick, but you can't quit Kyle Pitts, right? It's impossible to quit that talent. And then
Right.
also on this list is Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. They just drafted Colston Loveland early. I don't know. I think Ben Johnson still runs a lot of 12 personnel, so I don't know if they're dying to get rid of Cole Kmet, but either of those tight ends, would you be interested in adding them to the mix of Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper?
Yeah, Kyle Pitts, first off, like part of me still believes in Kyle Pitts, not as much as I used to, but do you know how many red zone targets he got last year in Atlanta?
Probably like the same amount of touchdowns Julio Jones caught, which is like 11 total or something.
13. They don't use him right. It's insane how wrong they use Kyle Pitts. So I take the flyer. They need a developmental long-term tight end. He's still sort of that. But I'm not giving it. Like, there was a report from Jordan Schultz earlier this summer that they wanted a day 2 pick. No, I'm not giving up top 100 pick for Kyle Pitts, especially with his contract about to run out. So I'm not going to do that. Cole Kmet, he's sort of redundant to Henry and Hooper. Now he's a better blocker and he's younger, so he does give you more of that pipeline. Again, I'm not going to give up a ton, but I wouldn't hate Cole Kmet because now it's like, all right, Austin Hooper moves on next year. He becomes your tight end too. And then you see how he continues to develop. And maybe when Hunter Henry's contract's up in a year or two and he's on the wrong side of 30, Cole Kmet can kind of step in, having grown with Drake May.
Yep. They're both still young. Pitts is 24, Kmet's 26, and he's actually under contract for 3 more years, including this one at $11.6 million a season. I don't know, like the guarantees, you can probably get out of that at some point. So he would be under contract for a while, but so we'll see if maybe they add a tight end there with Pitts and Cole Kmet there on the radar. But we will jump over to some of the defensive targets. But very quickly, before we do that, I also want to tell you guys about our friends over at Prize Picks. Do you guys know ball? Because the sports world may slow down a bit for now. Now we have a champion in hockey and basketball, but summer baseball is in full force. Even though the Red Sox are killing us, and you can spice up the action on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Pick more or less on player stats like hits, home runs, strikeouts, and more for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today, and even taking advantage of their weekly promotions. That can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday each Tuesday, where projections can be discounted from 15 to 25%. I don't want to brag, but last show I said we're rolling with the kids, Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer. Yep. Both of them the last 2 days have been pretty hot. The only hot members on the Red Sox besides Garrett Crochet, as usual. So we're going to keep riding with them. More than half a hit for Roman Anthony in my lineup. More than 1.5 bases for Marcelo Meyer in there as well, and keep those kids rolling and hitting well. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, all over on Prize Picks. Run your game. We'll have to do a big Boston Sports Minute here at the end because a lot going on as well, in addition to those Red Sox. But we will first wrap up with some trade targets on the defensive side of the football. We'll start with the big one that we've kind of talked about a little bit already, and that's in the secondary with Jalen Ramsey, because there's a lot of edge guys too. So we'll start with Jalen Ramsey. He's 30 years old, still played in all 17 games last year. Dolphins are still trying to trade him. They remain optimistic that they will, according to Jeremy Fowler. So I know this is one of the top of the guys on your list of these trade targets. Why so? Why are you interested in Jalen Ramsey there?
I just think a guy like this in a defense that gets a little creative with the secondary and prioritizes that big slot, or, at this stage in Ramsey's career, if you use him as kind of a hybrid safety, I think he'd excel there. I just think he'd be such a great fit defensively and would really unlock a lot for them, take this thing to another level. Now, Miami's not going to trade him here. I am not under any illusion. The in-division tax it would take would not be worth it for the Patriots. But if they can't deal him and he gets released, the Patriots should be on the phone, and they still have how much cap space they have left. They have a good amount left.
A lot,
right?
I think. I'll pull it up.
Throw money at him, get him here. If he's in free agency, they should be major players. I'm not, if they don't trade for him, I'm not going to sit here and shame them for not getting a trade done. Cause again, Miami's not going to trade him in the division, and I'm fine with that. But if he's a free agent, he would be, of all the players we're going to talk about, he would be just, all things considered, I think the best fit, because you don't have to give up anything to get him but money. And he just plugs in really nicely. He almost kind of becomes a wild card in your defense, where you can just use him as a matchup player every week. You play him in the slot, you can play him at safety, you can play him in the box, you can play him on the boundary. If guys get banged up, I just think they'd have a lot of fun with him.
Yeah, they definitely would. And Patriots still have 60 million in cap space right now. Next closest is San Francisco with 46 million. So they could theoretically win any bidding war they want for any of these guys if they end up getting cut and reach the open market there. So he would be a really, really fun addition if he did shake free. I agree. I don't think Miami would be trading him here unless like they blow him away with a trade offer, which I don't think would be smart. But he would be a really fun addition there to the secondary. And there were a lot of edge players. TJ Watt and Trey Hendrickson are the big ones. I still would imagine TJ Watt gets done in Pittsburgh. It's hard to envision him somewhere else. Trey Hendrickson, though, feels a little bit different just because it's the Bengals. And again, we talked about this the other day. They can't even sign their first round pick. So who knows what's going to happen there. But both would be a big time addition on the edge. Hendrickson still 17 and a half sacks last year, led the league. So he can still get after quarterbacks at 30 years old. And I know you have Harold Landry, but we talked a lot about, his metrics fell off a little bit last year. Can he be rejuvenated back with Vrabel and Terrell Williams? Maybe. And then you're relying on, Caleb on Chase to kind of take a next step a few years into his career, then a rookie in Braden Swinson and a breakout from Keon White. So that group is optimistic, but there's still a lot of question marks, I think, in there. So if you could add a no doubt number one edge rusher like Trey Hendrickson to pair with Barmore or Milton Williams, I think you have to do that. But what do you think about Hendrickson or potentially even TJ Watt there?
Yeah, they definitely could use more pass rush, and I'd be in on it. Watt's not getting traded. I'd be surprised by that. Hendrickson, maybe. Again, that second round pick package, I'd give up. Second round, fourth rounder, and then some other day 3 somewhere or a player. Maybe that's Anthony Jennings, right? Because the Bengals are horrible against the run. So if it's a second and Anthony Jennings for Trey Hendrickson, I do that. They could use the pass rush help. Definitely. I'd be in on those guys. I'm not holding my breath on those, though, because I don't think those guys are getting traded. And unlike Ramsey, those guys aren't getting cut. So you're not going to get a chance to sign them.
Definitely. And the last edge guy, Kayvon Thibodeau with the New York Giants. Kind of an interesting one because they just, drafted Abdul Carter. They have a lot of talent. They still have, Burns on the edge there as well. So a lot of talent on the defensive line. Maybe Thibodeau kind of shakes free 2022 first round pick, been up and down. I don't think he's reached double digit sacks yet in his career, but still only 24 years old. He has that first round pick pedigree, still been productive, but just hasn't really exploded or taken that next step there. So do you think acquiring him, a younger option compared to Watt and Hendrickson, and going for Thibodeau and trying to get that next step out of him could be a more likely situation along the edge there in the pass rush department?
Yeah, I don't know. This is an interesting one. I don't really know why the Giants would trade him. He's still under 2 more years of team control. He has the 5th option, maybe next year if you can't get a deal done. But the Giants of all teams should know the value of having more than 2 starting caliber players on the edge, going back to that NASCAR package, especially when you have a guy with the versatility of Abdul Carter.
Yeah.
If I'm the Giants, I'm asking for a lot to trade him because he's an asset. There's no contract issue, not yet. He's not exactly blocked. He might not play 100% of the time. He's not exactly blocked on the depth chart. Yeah, I don't want the Patriots to add him. I think he's a good pass rusher. I see 0 incentive for the Giants to trade him right now. None.
Especially if you're Brian Daboll and you're Joe Shane and you're trying to win this year to save your job. like you have maybe the best pass rush group in the league that can go up against anyone. Why would you take a piece out of that? Even if you say we still have Brian Burns and Abdul Carter, like put all three of them out there and let them just cause as much havoc as possible, or you can keep him fresh. Like trading him for a draft pick isn't going to help you win this year and potentially save your job. So I wouldn't see that as a great move from the Giants, but if they view that differently and say, we have Carter, we have Burns, we're going to move off from this guy, yeah, I would absolutely be interested in maybe trying to get that next step out of him for a midday pick or whatever they are looking for there. So that would be an interesting one to kind of keep an eye on. The only other honorable mention on defense was Devin Lloyd, linebacker. I know that's a spot we've talked a lot about maybe adding some additional depth there in Jacksonville with Devin Lloyd. So we'll see if that's something. But any name not on that list that kind of catches your eye or your interest or anything at all there?
I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other big contract holdouts. Brandon Ayuk might work his name back into the trade block at some point there, but as he always seems to do. But those are some trade targets, so we'll keep keeping an eye on those guys until training camp, maybe through training camp with some of them if they get new contracts. Vrabel said during minicamp they have to be in on those guys, doing their job to stay in on those guys. Yeah. But those are some trade targets. And Yasir Durant, any other Patriots news to get to, or we can kick this over to Boston?
Well, as a transition here, the Bruins got their new jerseys today. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. I don't know why there's a bear patch on one shoulder, but not the other. That's the only thing that's bugging me.
That was weird. I don't like that.
I don't even need the yellow socks. They look cool, but I don't need that. We're still waiting on those Patriots rivalry edition uniforms. What do you want to see from those? Do you want to see a throwback look? Do you want to see something new? What are you hoping for? I'm going to guess it's going to be something like throwback adjacent. Like, do you remember when baseball used to do the faux backs where they weren't really throwbacks, but they were throwback style?
I'm going to get a little bit.
Will we get the 90s Bledsoe Blues? No. Will we maybe get an element of the 90s Bledsoe Blues, like italic numbers or the shadow or maybe even the shoulders? Like, I think it's going to be something that's throwback adjacent, but not a true throwback. And that can go really right or really wrong. So we'll see, but that's kind of what I'm expecting from the very, 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 very little I've heard about this.
Yeah, I would love the Royal Blues in some capacity. Maybe they do. Yeah, I see all the mock-ups on Twitter, and there's a ton of good ones. Like, credit to all the guys who do that. Like, maybe it's something where it's the royal blue and the italics, but it's not the pinstripes or something in that regard. But I would love the Royal Blues back in the rotation. We talked about the silvers, which I think that would look pretty clean as well if they go that route. So we don't know. They haven't announced like when that's coming out at all, right?
No,
we haven't heard.
Well, so here's the thing I think to remember. The NFL, and they probably should be doing this more than they are. They did this with Color Rush. The NFL kind of wants to bring back the color on color matchup. So do you know why one team wears white in every sport, not just football? Why teams don't just wear their own color jersey?
Is it something for the broadcast?
Because when there was black and white TV, you couldn't tell. That's obviously kind of a dated concept at this point. So I think like baseball, there should be no more gray jerseys. We just don't need that. Like, right. So look, some teams have good white uniforms and you keep those in the rotation for sure. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's because it's by division, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Do they make it so they're going to wear them against their divisional opponents? So in theory, like the Jets are going to be green. The Dolphins will probably be white or orange because they are a white at home team. Who gets blue? The Patriots or the Bills? So if the Bills are getting blue, will they have two blue in the same division? Or if the idea is for them to wear them against each other at the same time, you can't have both the Patriots and the Bills wearing blue. So now does that mean the Patriots are red or silver, or is there something else coming in? Unless it's like a really, really light blue and a really, really dark blue. And even then that would be a tough sell. Or do the Bills get red because they have those red alternates? But if it's supposed to be throwbacky, the Bills never really wore red until recently. That would be more the Patriots. Do we get like the dynasty era jerseys, but with red instead of blue? Kind of how like the current jerseys are the Pat Patriot throwback, but blue instead of red. It might be red. Like it might be red. Maybe we get the Bledsoe blue design with the italics and the little stripes on the jersey and the shoulders, but it's a red jersey, right? So I had that thought the other day that if it's going to be by division, the Patriots one might not be blue because I think the Bills would get blue there.
Yeah. I would hope it's not another red one, but then if like the Bills have their red throwback too, so if they get blue, we get silver, something along those lines. And
right.
Is it?
But if the Patriots have silver, that means the Dolphins probably have to wear orange because you're not going to have silver and white. The Bills didn't start wearing red until 2015. They never wore red before 2015, so it's not a historic color for them.
Yeah. We could do blue, silver, or no, blue, silver, green, and orange, something like that for the four division
That could
team.
work. Yeah.
I could see that. Of course, the Patriots get silver, but which isn't as fun as the blue or color. But I think it could.
But it would be different. It would be different. This is just me, and there's also a chance that this is irrelevant, and I just kind of made that up for nothing. But that's just the thought I had, that if the plan is for the divisional teams to wear them against each other, you have to make sure that all four teams can wear their uniforms against each other. And if the Patriots and Bills are both wearing blue, then they couldn't do that. Now, maybe you're going to wear it against your divisional opponents at home, and the other team will just wear the road jersey, then this would be irrelevant. But a thought that I had.
No, that's good, because I would imagine they take advantage of this kind of dead period to announce it at some point.
That's right? What it's got to be coming, yeah.
Like to pump up some hype for something during, late June and early July before training camp. But I just looked at like the press release again, and they don't have any dates on there, or no one really has a date. So I guess we'll just see when those come out and react to them. But hopefully that comes out sometime soon so we can look at those. But
somebody on Twitter, tweet it at us and at Patriots CLNS if you're good with the graphic design. The Bledsoe blues, so with the big shoulder and the italic numbers and the faded like stripes in the jersey, but make it red instead of like flip the red and the blue, obviously, except for the Patriots logo, and show us what that looks like.
That could be interesting. I hope they get the royal blues though, because that would be awesome to have back in the rotation. So
yeah,
we'll see if they get that. But all right, there's your jersey talk. Good Bruins jerseys. We'll see Patriots jerseys. A lot of Boston sports news going on right now. I guess we'll start with Celtics because they've been doing the most stuff. They're blowing up this team. Drew Holiday gone. Kristaps Porzingis gone. I'm not going to sit here and act like I can explain the NBA CBA, but from everything I understand, it feels like a good piece of business to get under the second apron, maybe get under the first apron, and kind of reset the books and reset everything, especially in a year where Jason Tatum is hurt and not going to be playing the whole year. And then when he's hopefully healthy and ready to go, they can kind of load this thing back up. And it feels like, especially the Drew trade was a good one from Brad to get a couple picks. Simons, who I like, another 3-point shooter who they could.
Well, careful, they might flip him now.
They could potentially flip him. So we'll see. But I guess getting both of those contracts and not having to attach assets to do it feels like good work from Brad Stevens. We'll see what he does in the draft tonight as well. Feels like a lot of rumblings that he wants to move up in the lottery, get into the lottery somehow. So a lot of work and stuff to do. D. White, Jaylen Brown's name are out there. I hope they don't move those guys, but it seems like so far it's been the expected stuff, and I kind of like the strategy of everything I know about the NBA CBA.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd like to see them add a big tonight. But I think what they're doing so far is more or less what they had to do. And you can hate the new rule all you want. It's not a great rule the way they've set up the salary cap, but this is the way they've set it up, and you kind of have to play it as it lies. So,
yeah, it does feel tough for like the teams who want to spend and go all in. You get penalized for it in a way, like having to trade all these guys after you just extended them, but it is what it is. So hopefully they can kind of reset the books. I don't know. Hauser will probably get moved as well at some point, and then, free up some playing time for some of those younger guys. Hopefully they can add a big. I don't know if they'll be able to re-sign Cornette or Horford, or if Horford even wants to come back at this point, but they will need a big in there at some point. So we'll see what happens at the draft tonight. And then Red Sox, man, they just bought us all back in, and then they traded Devers, and it all goes to hell. Who could have seen that coming, right? 4 straight losses now. They lose 2 straight series after trading Devers, and seemed like we might have been building some momentum and having a fun baseball summer at Fenway Park, and there it goes, Barth. Say goodbye.
I just it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating because they are so close, but it's just sloppy, bad baseball. Instances where it appears like they don't even know the rules. You know what I'm talking about? And
they don't know the rules.
Yeah, I get they'll be interesting to an extent just because they have the kids on the roster, right? And that will help. But I think that's only going to ultimately take them so far. Yeah. And that's the reality of it. Is this another lost season because they won't realistically spend probably buy at the deadline because it's the wrong thing to do, but it's become pulling teeth to watch them.
Yeah. The Garrett Crochet starts are the most frustrating thing, and it's so annoying because he is awesome. Like, he shoves every time he's out there. It's like guaranteed 1 run minimum, 8+ strikeouts, and they just can't score. And you saw it again last night. He goes 7 scoreless, so then they immediately give up 2 home runs right when he goes out, and they lose. But It is fun watching, Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer, watching the kids, watching them grow, and really this is going to be their team now at some point here. So it is fun paying attention to those guys. But the baseball, it's tough. It's pulling teeth at some point with just careless and sloppy mistakes, arguing the rules that are clear-cut rules, as you said. So we'll see. They come home soon. Hopefully they can turn it around, but not counting on that one at all there. But Bruins, we didn't do any NHL mock drafts. You have a
we
pick
didn't
for the Bruins in the draft on Friday night, 7th overall.
Porter Martone is the guy I want. I'm getting them all mixed up at this point.
He's the big.
Just get me somebody with some skill. Get me somebody who's not tiny with some skill. Is that too much of an ask, Brian?
So you're out on James Higgins?
Isn't he just like big and that's it?
No, he's the small BC kid, but he's
but he's like, how small is he?
He's 5'11".
No,
5'11", I think, like 177. He's only 18, so he should put on some muscle, but he is smaller. But if you want speed and skill in the
I want size and skill.
Okay, that's definitely fair. But if you want speed and skill, like James Higgins is the guy. He was the number one. He's been the number one prospect in this class since he was like 9 years old, and now all of a sudden he's the guy who's everyone's kind of has fatigue of, and he's falling. Like, tons of mocks have him available to the Bruins at 7, which I think at that point you just have to do it. I would love some center with size. We'll see if one of those guys fall, but I'd be in on Higgins at 7.
I also want a center that's good at faceoffs. Call me old school. I want centers that can win faceoffs, not a glorified wing. You're just playing in the middle. I need guys that they were not a good faceoff team last year. They haven't been. They need to be able to win faceoffs.
I think his numbers at BC were pretty good in the dot last year.
I actually think he's a decent faceoff guy. I don't want some tiny guy that's going to get hurt. Isn't there one guy that's like 5'8", 160, who's like in the top 10? Another like Alex DeBrincat type.
I think it's Victor Eklund. He's shorter. He's got a brother who's like tiny, and I think he's pretty tall, pretty small as well. There are some good centers with size, like Caleb Desnoyers. Jeez, these hockey names. He's like 6'2". He gets compared to his style of play, like Patrice Bergeron, like a good 200-foot game. I think they would like him a lot, but he's probably going to go 4 or 5. Jake O'Brien gets compared to Krejci. Like, there's all these Bruins molds. He's like 6'2". He could go 6 or 7 as well there. So there are some centers with size, but everyone wants centers with size, so they probably will go before.
It was I remember who I was thinking. Alexander Zarkovsky is 6'1", 163.
6'1".
That guy's going to get broken in half. Jake O'Brien too, 6'2", 177. The Bruins do not need a draft Tyquan Thornton.
Desnoyers is 6'1.5", 178.
That's better.
Hagen's they have him 5'10 and a half, 178.7.
That's really small. That
A
guy's
lot
gonna
of
get
these
bullied.
guys are just light right now.
Oh, I get it because they're younger, but like
Yeah.
160.
So
Because the thing is, if you're, I get they're going to get bigger over time, but if you're drafting somebody in the top 10 in the NHL, maybe he's not going to play year one, but like he should be in the league probably by the end of his second year. So you don't have a ton of time to put that weight on. This should not be a 3-year project. They can't do Fabian Lysell again. They can't do, I mean, Jacob Forsbacka Carlson obviously didn't even get there, but like this has to be a guy, 7th overall pick that's up relatively quickly. Maybe not right away. I know that's usually only the top 2 or 3 picks, but by October 2026 or October 2027, right? Probably should be like a key player for you.
Yeah. Especially with this core, right? Like you're not rebuilding this thing 4 or 5 years when you still have McAvoy and Pastrnak on your roster. So would you take the Roger McQueen swing? He's 6'5", 197. He's supposed to go like anywhere.
Well, no, I know this is the guy that's like the classic Bruin, right? He's not actually good at hockey. He's just big and tough.
No, that's Brady Martin. I have a comparison for Brady Martin that I want to tell you after, but Roger McQueen, he's 6'5", 197. He's projected to go, I guess, from like the 7 to 12 range. And everyone's like, this is the shot, like the shot in the dark to get the pure like number one center, not with the first overall pick. But he's 18 years old, he's 6'5", and he already had back issues last year. So they said he was good at the combine, he participated and stuff, but like, do you trust a 6'5", 18-year-old already with back injuries? You already took a 6'5" center in Dean Letourneau last year, and you saw how that worked. Now McQueen is much more talented, but like that is the true, we're going to take a big shot at this thing and try to hit.
Back injuries make me nervous. I'm not against the shot in general. I'd be kind of a hypocrite for not wanting the Patriots to draft Josh Simmons and then say the Bruins should do this, right? This is essentially the Josh Simmons pick is what you're saying?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I'm kind of take cornered on that one.
What about Brady Martin's the other late riser? Does this sound familiar? Position of need, praise for like his leadership and toughness, but the ceiling there's question marks about the ceiling. Does that sound like
Are there question marks about Will Campbell's ceiling?
I would say so, just because of the arm length stuff.
But okay, when I was talking about this, I said that I asked if he's technically skilled. Will Campbell is very technically skilled. Will Campbell's a good football player. Like, does this guy have hockey skill?
That's the
no. That's a no. That's a no.
He's got skill. Okay, like he's going to be a top 10 pick. He has, but the offensive ceiling is what a lot of people question. Like he runs around like a madman, and like he's getting the Sam Bennett comparison now because he skates around, he hits people.
I'm not drafting an enforcer 7th overall.
But a lot of people like the offensive ceiling might limit him to a 3rd line center, and I'm just not taking that risk at 7 overall, which is funny because Sam Bennett was drafted 4th overall, but it took him like a change of scenery and a complete change of his game to get to that.
And also playing with some other superstar players.
Exactly. He's playing with Matthew Tkachuk. So I'm not taking Brady Martin 7th overall. Would be a classic Don Sweeney pick, though. I mean, come on, like just a physical kid who has trouble scoring, like that's a Don Sweeney pick right there. So we'll see what happens with the Bruins. They'll probably find a way to blow it, but at least they'll look good this year when they stink. But hopefully they can figure that out. So good Boston Sports Minute there, but we will wrap it up there. We'll be back next week with some more Patriots talk and maybe react to the draft, and maybe free agency will start for one of those leagues at least by the time we're on
June 30th, July 1st. Yeah, we're gonna have to do a show on the 30th because I'm on the hub the night of the 1st, so I won't be able to do a show that day. So, that will be leading into NBA and NHL free agency.
All right, so
super relevant to us, but it is that time of year.
Yeah, we'll have some other Boston stuff to talk about at least. I think most people like the Boston Sports Minute sprinkled in at this point.
This is also the time of year we can zoom out and do some bigger picture football stuff. Maybe we do some around the league. Maybe we do some. I tried to do one year. It was great. Like me and Evan were going to like pull film from like Patriots legends and break it down, but we got copyright striked over it. But if you guys could think of something we can do with like old school Patriots, I'm always down to that. Maybe we talk a little Madden, a little CFB. Maybe we do a 2026 draft preview. I was sending Taylor Jordan Tyson highlights the other day. So I met, and he was like, I don't know if he's a fit. He might be a Z. And this is me. I was like, at this stage, I'm kind of just in that boy nice mindset. And then we'll go from there. We'll worry about it from there. Hopefully they're not picking high enough to draft Jordan Tyson. But if they are, Jordan Tyson might be Tet McMillan with speed. Might be. Long way to go. Might be. But
right now the scouting process is that boy nice. That guy's a dog.
Yeah.
Like that's about it. And then we'll get into the nitty gritty as the stuff goes on. But
yeah.
We'll find stuff to talk about, and we'll be back next week. So make sure you're locked on to Patriots Press Pass on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. You can also subscribe wherever else you get your podcasts, and make sure you turn those notifications on Patriots Press Pass so you know when we're going live or any other content is getting posted. Mike and Taylor, Mike's back, so they're still doing their shows and tons of other stuff across Patriots Press Pass there as well. So please like, subscribe, turn those notifications on. Once again, you can also follow Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com for his written content there. You can also follow me on Twitter at @IamBrianHines, and head over to patspulpit.com for our Patriots content online there as well. Thanks again for everyone for jumping in with us today. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the drafts, and we will see you guys next week.